The signs were there from the beginning. This morning, a subscriber emailed me and it caught my attention immediately. And he sent me a link and I clicked on it. 2 expat vloggers announced a breakup. Were there signs at the very beginning? Did you see signs? Jogo Wonder announced that he was separating from his long-term girlfriend, April, of a 1-year relationship. And just 9 days ago, our piece of heaven, Bohol, announced on his channel that he and his girlfriend were breaking up and separating. Whenever these relationships end, the comments, the subscriber comments always seem the same. Did you see it coming? What happened? Who was right? But I think everybody is asking the wrong question about these relationships. What interests me is, were there any signs of this from the beginning? Because if relationships that look successful on camera fail, how do we know if our own relationship is built on solid ground? I think everybody wants to know if they're next. I mean, I worry when I make a video like this. What if I'm next? What if my relationship should fail? How can I be so certain? What was different about this relationship I got myself into 3.5 years ago? And that's when I started thinking about a concept called the Dunning-Kruger effect. Back in 1999, 2 researchers, college professors, published an article called Unskilled and Unaware back in 1999. And what they discovered was fascinating and is really pertinent to you and me and everybody else. The people who knew the least about a subject were often the people who thought they knew the most. The people who performed the worst often rated themselves much higher than was justified. Meanwhile, truly skilled, truly knowledgeable, truly experienced people tended to rate themselves much lower than they deserved. In simple language, the less you know about something, the more easy it is to become overconfident. The more you learn, the more you become aware of the things that you don't know and the mistakes that could occur. Think about a pilot. Think about a surgeon. Think about a criminal investigator. The more experience they gain, the less likely they are to say, I can't make a mistake, because experience teaches humility. And today, gentlemen, after 3.5 years in a relationship with a young Filipina, in an age gap relationship, having seen Jogo Wonder, Archie, Gio, Mike Smith, after seeing what appear to be really solid relationships go south, I'm here to tell you, there's a lot of things that can go wrong, and I wake up every day feeling blessed that I'm in a solid relationship with my wife. And how did that happen? And what can you do as you start out? If you're new in a relationship, what can you do to make sure you're not next? Experience teaches humility. And I see the same thing every week here in the Philippines. The most dangerous man isn't the most inexperienced man. The most inexperienced man knows he's inexperienced. The most dangerous man is the man who says, I can spot a scammer. I've dated often. It's not my first time in the Philippines. It's not my first rodeo. I am the kind of guy that knows how to spot a scammer. I can do it different. I have the skill. I know women. I've seen it all. I can't be fooled. That's usually when trouble starts. And it happens often. I have a consulting practice, and it's been going for 2.5 years, and I've talked to hundreds and hundreds of men. And quite often, I get that spidey sense there could be some underlying problem in this man's relationship. And I recommend proper vetting. I recommend caution. I recommend a process, a system to move forward slowly, vetting carefully. And I hear back, no, I know what I'm doing. I am positive. I video chatted for a week or 2 every day. This woman would have to be the world's best actress. Well, their family member tells them, Dad, you have to have like junk for brains if you think that young woman is in love with you. If you think she's in love with your 65-year-old dad bod, you have to have junk in the trunk. You got to be crazy. When a man, an inexperienced man, declares, I can't be fooled, I am sure that I found somebody, that is when trouble starts. Because success is what creates blind spots. Now, I've made a video in the past and I've talked about dating a Filipina like 12 levels of a video game. And when you get to level 1, okay, congratulations, you get to go to level 2. And I've said before, I'm married. I've been married for years. Check back with me in 3 or 4 years and see if I won the video game. The family members, are people healthy? Are people hiding their real jealousy? Are people hiding their real tampo? Are people emotionally mature? Is this a real love relationship? You know what? Even after you have been in a relationship for as long as I have, don't be so overconfident. Overconfidence is the beginning of a real problem. And success can breed overconfidence and trouble. Success creates blind spots. And a lot of my clients, they're engineers and doctors and PhDs and master plumbers, and they have lived life and they have successfully managed people and businesses, and they're smart men, and they can't see how it could happen to them. But success in Arizona doesn't always translate to success in Mindanao, in Luzon, in Dumaguete. Running a corporation doesn't teach you Filipino family dynamics. Selling real estate doesn't teach you relationship vetting skills. Being successful in one game doesn't always transfer to another. Different environment, different rules, and a different skill set. I had hired exhaustively as a corporate executive, and I had felt like I had developed a particular strategy and skill set that I could bring to bear when trying to find a wife or a long-term girlfriend in the Philippines. And I've often talked to you about hire hard, manage easy. There exist low-maintenance women in this world. When you say, let's go for a hike, and she's at the door with her tennis shoes on without having to put makeup or go to the bathroom, you will be shocked to know there is such a thing as a low-maintenance girlfriend. There are women who are emotionally mature. There are women who are thoughtful and who can be your best friend and live a low-maintenance existence. And when you're hiring, it's critical that you vet these employees, that you slow things down, you take your time, you listen to what you can learn, you check references, and you put confidence in your hire, and then you get your man, your woman, you get that employee, and you move forward with confidence. And I think here in the Philippines, when it comes to being in a relationship, there are so many men who fell into success. They fell into a relationship that feels good, that she's pretty, she's complimentary, she has charm school skills, she's Filipina, she's so deferential, she's so sweet and syrupy. Men feel success and they turn off the vetting, they turn off the investigation, they turn off the process, they don't follow a system, and all of that life experience has led them to believe they're better than average at this, like the Dunning-Kruger effect. The men with the least amount of experience have the most overconfidence. Now, I've talked to hundreds and hundreds of men, and Chrissy has done several hundred, I think 300 in the last year, social media reviews, and there's only a 40% pass rate. Only 40% get a clean sheet. Even when the men have met the woman 2 and 3 times over 2 and 3 years, it's still just 40% pass. The same exact pass rate as the men who've never met. What is that data point telling us? It's telling us there's this huge reservoir of overconfidence, men who think they know what they're doing. They've been burned once and they're sure they're not being burned the second time. That level of inexperience is creating a huge amount of overconfidence. 3.5 years ago, when I first found Chrissy, I wasn't looking specifically for Chrissy. I was trying not to be one of those disaster stories, not one of those men who'd been taken to the cleaners, not one of those men who sent thousands of dollars, not one of those men who came to the Philippines only to find out I'd been lied to, that the woman wasn't real quality and that I had shut down the process, or I had no process. There was no system. My goal was not to fail, and I had failed previously, and I've shared this on this channel. 7 years before I met Chrissy, I dabbled, gave away $100. She was a scammer. I shut it down. During the lockdown, I dabbled, video chatted a woman for 60 days. It was only when I checked her social media in a 3-hour intensive research phase that I found out she was engaged, lying to me, talking to a man from Ohio. And I've shared that story. So I was looking not to be a victim, not to be taken advantage of, and I didn't have a sense of overconfidence. I had run into trouble previously. I wasn't sure that success was possible, and I was going to proceed with great caution. I was looking for reasons to say no. Dile, hindi, no. And that changes everything, guys. Instead of saying, how attractive is she? How petite is she? How amazing is she? I asked, does her life make sense? Now, one of the things I stumbled onto, and I had been an executive in an internet company after my corporate career, and I had some decent skills in social media, and I kind of stumbled onto a process where before I really wanted to video chat with a woman, I tried to gain access to her social media, and I found that that would eliminate like 90% of the women. And why bother video chatting? Why bother being drawn in by her sensuality, by her sexuality, by her femininity? Why bother being exposed to that if there were things on her social media that were just deal breakers? And I had my list of deal breakers, nice to have and need to have, and I was determined I was going to do this right. I was looking for reasons to say no. And it was eliminating a lot of potential people that I would have video chatted with before I made an emotional commitment. And this is where so many men go bad. They get out over their skis. They spend 10 days video chatting twice a day. They become best friends with a woman, and they've done no vetting early on. The only vetting they're doing is, does she or doesn't she ask for money? Other than that, there's no vetting really. There's just this gut feeling. They don't listen carefully to the story. They don't ask, does this life make sense? Is it possible that such a beautiful woman could make it to 35 without being married, without having a previous boyfriend? How is this possible? She's in college for nursing at 35. They don't ask the hard questions. They don't ask if this life makes sense. This was my third time attempting to be successful, and I wanted evidence. I needed real evidence. I had this hiring background in corporate America where I hired hard, and I would advertise in the Wall Street Journal. I'd pay for the headhunters, and I'd never jumped into it quickly. I waited for my Ronaldo, for my Roger Staubach, for my Michael Jordan, until a superstar showed up, and I could vet them completely. I didn't get emotionally invested. And that was the secret to my relationship with Chrissy. I wanted patterns, and I needed to see a resume, a social media resume. Real quick, we offer a 13-page social media investigation PDF. If you would like to try and do it on your own and you don't have the money or the interest in hiring Chrissy to do it for you, just write to me at flymetothephilippines@gmail.com and I'll send it to you, a 13-page PDF for free. Now, my background, I needed to see a resume. And I always say, if you go to Thailand, there's a chance you could meet a beautiful woman, 35 years old. The language is so difficult. What did she do before you met her? There's no pay. She says, I don't use Facebook. There's no history. There's family members. They speak Thai. You can hardly communicate. You could be married for 10 years and find out she was a bar girl before you met her because you give up. It's not likely you're going to find her background on social media in Thailand. But in the Philippines, gentlemen, where social media is #1 on the planet, These women should have a social media page that goes back to when they were 15, 16 years old. And when I met Chrissy, she had a page. It went back to when she was 14. There were 3 postings a week from the age of 14 until 29 when I met her. And if you're willing to sit there for 6 hours, 8 hours, you can scroll back and see every week of her life. There's no gap. It's like when you're hiring an employee, you don't want to see a 2-year gap and find out they went to prison, and that's why there's no job. In the Philippines, social media reveals the story behind the story. The questions I wanted answered. Did she really reside where she said? Did she really graduate college? Was her body count what she said it was? How does she get along with her family members? When was the account created? When was it last updated? How many other accounts does she have? And every other Facebook account will have a messenger account, which gives her an opportunity to talk to men internationally without you being aware she's online. Did she have any of those? These were all questions I needed answered. And so many of my clients, they're just moving forward. How pretty is she? How good is her English? How sweet is she? How concerned with my health is she? Does she seem to really like me? What about, is she real? Is she for real? Can you find documentation of her life? Are there real friends, real family members, real interactions, real gravity in her life? Does the timeline make sense? Do the photos match the lifestyle she's describing? Do the comments match the story? Are there years of history, or was this account made 3 years ago and have only 300 or 400 friends? I know from experience a typical Filipina at 30 years old should have 2,000 to 3,000 friends. When she shares an account with you that has 400 friends, was this account essentially created yesterday or when she first started pursuing dating internationally? My approach was I was trying to prove that Chrissy was a fake, and I was going to get to the bottom of it before I gave my heart. And I certainly wasn't going to send any money before I met her in person. I decided to see if reality matched the narrative, because that's what investigators do. That's what successful businessmen do when they make an important hire. And men, this is your most important hire. And you only want to do this one more time, and you do want to find a low-maintenance girlfriend to live out the rest of your glory years in retirement here in the Philippines or in Asia. Successful men, successful businessmen, investigators, they verify, they vet. Now, when I met Chrissy, what were the green flags that I saw? And for my big brother and little sister consulting clients, I go into a 90-minute, very granular class on what I call the last chance strategy. And I have supporting video and supporting written materials. And I teach you exactly how I work the online dating apps. And I have a book that you can have for free if you write me and ask for my Dating in Asia book, okay? But what was it that I saw in terms of green flags with Chrissy? Well, first, she appeared like a girl next door. She did not lead with her beauty. She was college educated. She'd been online in the last 48 hours. She had one child from one baby daddy, and she used photos that downplayed her beauty. She had learned not to lead with her beauty, just like men need to learn not to lead with their money. When we got on video quickly, there was no love bombing. There were no emergency requests for money, no asking for load. There were no timeline inconsistencies. As she rolled out her life story, as she talked about her history, there were no inconsistencies, no constantly changing stories, no friction to move faster than I was comfortable with. I was actually on a 76-day vacation in South America, and I was planning to go to Turkey. And I made the decision after 15 days to cancel the last 30 days of my trip in Turkey and come to the Philippines on day 36 after meeting her. But that was my decision. She didn't do anything to pressure me to do that. And then came the next step, visiting in person. And the way Chrissy and I teach it is if you can meet somebody who you can vet online, and online has the advantage that you can vet the person, you can become best friends before the chemistry overtakes. You know, the chemistry with a young Asian woman can be just intense, and you can lose your head in terms of vetting and questioning and looking for consistency once that occurs. So online gives a huge advantage. You can search large geographic areas, you can search smaller towns where these girls tend to be, that they're not in Manila and Cebu City. So you can look in these smaller towns. I'm not saying a pig farmer in the mountains, but 50,000 people, that's where you're going to find them online. And now you can look for consistency. You can see if the timelines are holding together. You can look for social media that goes back to when they were in high school and get a real interview and vetting underway. And the way we teach it, the minute a woman asks for money online, throw her away. Full stop. Get rid of her. Stop and block. That's it. And you must follow this rule. Anyone who asks for money in the first 15 days should be immediately terminated as a prospect. But if they get past 15 days, there's still a chance they're playing the long con. These are women who never ask for money, but just show a lot of poverty. And they don't have to ask because they're living so poor. Now, 15 days, don't get emotionally invested yet because you haven't vetted her social media. Either use the PDF we're giving away for free or hire Chrissy. Get a full social media review done. See if the timelines match. See if the story's there. See if the resume is complete. It should be there and complete. So here comes the next phase. You've talked to her online for 15 days, not a hint of money. You vetted her social media, it totally checked out. You got on a plane, you fly to meet her, and then you test the chemistry. And odds are it's gonna be good. You know, you're a little worried because you're an older man, but odds are it's gonna be good. Then you go vet the family. You have to meet the family, and a woman who doesn't want you to meet the family is a big red flag. Day 4, day 5, day 6, you're going to meet the family and you're going to learn a lot. And you're going to look into people's health, their dental care, their physical health, the family member's health. You're going to figure out how educated she is. You're going to learn more about her sense of humor. You're going to learn more about her tampo and her jealousy. These are all things you need to determine before going forward. And when I met Chrissy, we didn't get married immediately. We had a promise ceremony and we waited 9 months to get engaged. And then we were engaged for 9 months, almost a year, before we got married. And we worked together. So it's like dog years. We were sitting there making YouTube, and we spent every minute together. So I really, really slowed it down and got to know her. Now, how you manage the family and can that work out 100% of the time, that's another issue that you don't always get 100% right. Sometimes you get it mostly right, like in my case where we had a good 2 years with her father working for us, and then he decided to start his own family and we had to make changes. We've got a very good situation up here in the mountain. Everything's working out. I feel that I approach this in a way that is a best practice. You want to slow it down. You want to check the facts. You want to hold back on committing, and you want to look for a reason to say no before you commit. Spend time together. Spend life together. Experience challenges together. Then marriage. We spent a year together. We needed to make sure that our life was the right life to proceed. And then we had her son move in after 1 year. And then we experienced what it was like to parent and have childcare in the house and work together, building projects together. You know, right now we're building this house up in the mountains. That's where I am right now. And that's a challenge. So how can you handle challenges together? Get these experiences as you move forward. You know, in project management, there's something called gates. You know, before you can finish a project, you got to go through these major 11 gates. Look at it this way. There's meeting her. There's vetting her. There's meeting her in person. Well, I should back up. There's vetting her online and there's vetting her in person. You must check her social media. You must see what's going online. You must You must move slowly before you give your heart. There are many gates to go through. Each gate needs a green light, a green flag. When you see a red flag, don't rush through those gates. And as you go through each gate, risk is reduced. Now, I hope when you check back with me in 2 or 3 years that Chrissy and I are leading our best lives and we continue to be happily married. But until, there's a few more gates that have to be gone through. And to make sure, we've only been married 2 years roughly, and it's not a sure thing, and I have to be at my best, and I have to manage my relationship carefully, and I hope not to be another one of these vloggers who had a disaster happen in their relationship. And what is the big lesson? Well, like when people ask me, how did I know Chrissy was different? So many of my clients say, hey Rob, does she have a sister? Hey Rob, I'm looking to meet a girl just like Chrissy. Well, and I teach them how I did it, and I teach them how I have about 200 clients who are moved in or K1, and they've been totally successful, and many of them started from scratch, and many of them were halfway through the process. And they asked me, how did I know Chrissy was different? And my answer totally surprises them. I didn't know she was different. Not at first. When I started to get an inkling she was different was when the evidence kept pointing in this one direction of success. I thought it was too good to be true, but everything kept coming back, green light, green light. But I didn't stop checking. I continued to get more and more data, and I suspected I was being scammed. I thought it was so easy to be scammed. I didn't trust myself. This Dunning-Kruger effect. I wasn't one of these men who was so sure that I could spot a scammer. No, I thought it must be a scam. And I proceeded with great caution. Every step of the way, I assumed I needed more information. I was probably being scammed. The men who most often get hurt are not normally the ones who ask the most questions. It's the men who stop asking questions. The men who succeed are not the men who know everything, and by God, I don't know everything. It's the men who never stop learning. And if you're interested in an in-person or online consultation, I have a link to my consultation calendar in the description box and the first pinned comment. And if you want to take Chrissy's 41-question relationship assessment test, just stop the video and scan with your camera this QR code. It resides on your personal device. It doesn't go into the cloud. You don't have to share it, but you can send it to Chrissy for her opinion. If you want to be the man who continues to verify, continues to ask questions, I suggest you follow through with that. Till next time. Till next time, don't forget to write.